Apple just did a surprise product launch that sort of throws everything into question. No one saw this coming. Plus, Apple has a totally revamped plan to try to make Vision Pro actually successful. We've got new leaks on the iPhone SE, and did Elon Musk kill Apple's big secret car project? Safe to say, we've got a lot of controversial news happening in the world of Apple this week, so let me break down all the Apple news you need to know right now. All right, so right now in the world of Apple, all eyes are on the end of October or early November, as that is supposed to be the timeline for Apple's last event of the year. This is a rumored October event. It's supposed to be focused on Macs and iPads, could have a surprise or two in there as well, and everything seemed like it was good to go until Tuesday of this week, Tuesday morning, when Apple sort of threw everybody a curveball and just sort of quietly announced an all-new iPad mini on their website. To very little fanfare, the all-new iPad mini is here. You can pre-order it now, gonna launch later in October. And I think the strategy might sort of make sense for this because the update here isn't really anything monumental. I wish it had an OLED display, wish it was 120 Hertz, wish it had Face ID. None of that is here, but it's more of the same. You are getting the A17 Pro in here. This is the iPhone 15 Pro chip. So yes, Apple Intelligence support will be here. I think there's now like smart HDR4 support for the rear camera. So if you're taking camera photos on your iPad mini, you've got a little bit of a better camera there. Of course, it's got USB-C. It's gonna have good battery life, 128 gigabytes of base storage. It also does have Apple Pencil Pro support as well. If you wanna use that higher end Apple Pencil on here, you can. And it's gonna start with a price tag of $500. So nothing, again, like seismically different here with iPad mini, but if you were looking at an iPad mini and you wanted to pick one up, it just got better and now is a little bit more future-proofed and again should have all the Apple Intelligence magic built in there as well. Now, I just mentioned October 23rd, that is the launch date of this iPad mini, but another date I want you to keep in the sort of the back of your mind or the front of your mind. Where would these dates go in your mind? November 1st, wherever it sits in your mind, because this is the rumored date for the M4 Mac launch. Not the event, but the actual like release of these machines. And there are a couple of new M4 Macs that could launch at one time. M4 iMac, slightly refreshed there. M4 MacBook Pros, those have already substantially leaked in like every single way, so we know what's coming there. And then also sort of the bigger surprise here is this all new Mac Mini, rumored to have a couple of USB-C ports, gonna be sort of the size of an Apple TV, but still have M4 and M4 Pro silicon inside to be powerful, small but mighty little Mac Mini. There's been a lot of speculation as to how Apple would announce this. Now, we thought that an October event was gonna happen. Sort of like last year, there was the Scary Fast event, so maybe like a mini 30-minute Apple event would make sense, which I think maybe the new redesigned Mac Mini could justify. But at the same time, Apple doesn't seem to have a problem just throwing things on their website. So maybe this all goes the way of the iPad mini, and we just see it on the website with little to no fanfare, sort of with that press release like we've seen before. So I would sort of put my money on the fact that if we were to see an event, it would happen sort of in that last week of October, almost exactly the same time as last year with the Scary Fast event. So we should know more soon. I'd assume that we'd hear something about this early next week. So again, just dates to sort of keep on your radar as when we could be getting some new Macs and maybe the last Apple event of the year. We've also got a new leak here on the iPhone SE4. Some casing has been released from Sunny Dixon, pretty reliable Apple leaker, and there's some good news and bad news here you should know. Good news is that this like major redesign does seem to be happening. This more modern iPhone 14 style design here, which is gonna be great. This leak also gives us some suggestion that a release is somewhat imminent, seems to align with those rumors of a spring 2025 release. So that is awesome. And again, the big stuff here with iPhone SE4, we're talking 6.1-inch OLED display, USB-C, Apple Intelligence, all that great stuff, 48 megapixel camera. But the one thing missing that the leak said would be here, at least explicitly, was a cutout for the action button. Now, on one hand, I guess sort of sad to see maybe it's not gonna make the cut, but on the other hand, does anyone really care if the action button is on the iPhone SE 4 or not? I know Apple Vision Pro is always super controversial, and it just seems like the news here does not get any better for this thing. Apple did release some new immersive content. I think there's like a new push for sort of getting developers involved and stuff like that. But latest analyst sort of numbers say that Apple is struggling to hit 500,000 units of this thing, and they're looking for all the ways they can to bring costs down. So here's sort of the new rough timeline of what we're hearing. Apple Vision Pro 2 with an M5 chip should be launching sometime probably near the end of next year in 2025. No crazy changes, just a new chip, hopefully lets you do more things and all the Apple Intelligence goodies. Before then though, or maybe around the same time, sounds like Apple is looking to push a cheaper version of Vision on the market. Maybe Vision Air, Apple Vision, not gonna be Vision Pro, or maybe there's some weird name thing there. But this would be around the $2,000 price point, so $1,500 less than what we've got with Vision Pro right now. And the way Apple's going to bring that price point down is in a couple of ways you'd expect. Less premium materials. The whole eyesight thing that you can sort of see the eyes of the person inside a Vision Pro, that would be going away, which again, I think makes a lot of sense. It's a great way to sort of cut costs down. We could also see sort of a slower processor inside, so maybe there's things you couldn't do. And then also, I would imagine that a way that we've heard Apple could bring costs down, and maybe something they decided to do, is sort of require some sort of tethering with a phone or a Mac to offload some of that horsepower. Would require you to have another device, but also could bring the price down significantly. So seems like two Vision headsets are on the table for a 2025 launch, one a bit more expensive, or I should say one as expensive as the one is right now, which is pretty expensive, and then one a tad less expensive. And then we're hearing sort of Apple's moving towards a couple of different goals. AirPods with cameras is allegedly a thing that Apple's working on. And then again, sort of the main thing here, the main objective that they're working towards is some sort of smart glasses, sort of like what Meta is doing. There's obviously the Ray-Bans now with the camera, but there's I think the new is it Orion or whatever the new sort of glasses thing is. Apple wants to build AR glasses, and Vision Pro is just sort of a stopgap, giving us a glimpse of the future, but not the final form factor just yet. We know Apple's working on this. We know it's gonna take quite some time, but that's sort of the new roadmap that we've got right now. And then finally, a little spice, little controversy here to end the video about the Apple Car project and Elon Musk. Now, we know that Apple and Tesla and Tim Cook and Elon Musk have a very complicated history. There were rumors that Tim Cook wouldn't talk to Elon Musk or want to engage with Tesla because Elon wanted Tim's job as Apple's CEO. There were talks from Elon Musk's side. He claims that he called Tim Cook when Tesla was struggling to see if there could sort of be some kind of partnership or if Apple could buy Tesla, but he never returned the call. Tim Cook says he never talked to Elon. There's a lot of weird history there, but we're now hearing, at least there is some internet chatter, unsubstantiated, just rumor, but just thought I'd throw it out there for discussion, that with Tesla's recent unveil of Cybercab, their new two-door robotaxi thing, that this might have been the final nail in the coffin for Apple's top secretive car project that they worked for years and years on, spent billions of dollars on, but ultimately was an internal flop, and they just decided to just cancel it altogether. Now, there's a lot of reach here with some of these things. I don't know how much Tesla and Apple sort of cross paths, so they did share their fair bit of employees from either side. But there are a couple of interesting things here to consider, especially with the news over the last couple of days that Apple no longer holds any sort of license for full self-driving autonomous testing in the state of California. So this project is officially done. The first thing to consider is that obviously they were gonna be competitors in the same space. Apple is looking to make a high-end luxury EV. Tesla is obviously in that market with a bunch of different cars, so there was maybe some rivalry there. But even more than that, we had heard that ultimately what Apple's project really was going to be was a full self-driving vehicle. Maybe it was a passenger vehicle, maybe it was more of a personal vehicle, but the goal was like a higher-end, luxurious, fully autonomous vehicle that could drive you from point A to point B without you ever having to do anything. In fact, we had heard reports that when Johnny Ive was involved with this project, Apple was like working on this thing that the seats could move around, it'd have screens inside, Siri was doing everything, there was like built-in like anti-motion sickness stuff. Like Apple was really building this vehicle that they hoped would allow you to sit back, relax, and it would drive for you. And there is some speculation right now that as Apple is sort of having all these issues, they had gotten some wind internally that Tesla was finishing up their work on Cybercab, the robotaxi, the thing they just unveiled, and that when Apple finally realized just how far Tesla had come, not just with their physical vehicle, but also the fact that they'd built full self-driving, they had done all this work with autonomy, they had hundreds of millions of miles of like all this compute data and all this stuff, that Apple is just too far behind. And it wasn't just the fact that they'd have to compete with lots of different companies and lots of different, EVs and stuff in this space, but just the fact that Tesla was already, this was back in the spring, they were nearing completion of this Cybercab, they were ready to go, they were gonna have this fall event that apparently, rumor has it, that sort of once internally Apple heard about that and how far Tesla was and how they were gonna reveal this thing, that they just realized it was just sort of over. And again, there's a lot of speculation here. Tesla's not even shipping this thing for a couple of years, according to Elon, and we all know how Elon's timeline is, a little ambitious, but also given the fact that Tesla, with all the strides they'd make with full self-driving over, the last couple of months, with all they've done in this space, with sort of their plans for this, that Apple really would have to heavily catch up, and they really were behind. Even if they could get a car out, which analysts said wouldn't happen for a couple of years, it was just increasingly more clear that they were really far behind. And even with all the money in the world, Apple was pouring billions into this project, just wasn't going to happen. So did Apple cancel this thing because of Elon and Tesla? We'll probably never know the full story, but the timelines are very interesting. And if you connect the dots, maybe this does sort of make a little sense. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the news of the week, guys? Your thoughts on the surprise iPad mini release? Will we get an Apple event this fall, yes or no? And what are your thoughts on the Cybercab thing? Do you think Apple could have made a rival to this thing? Would you have spent $100,000 on a fully autonomous vehicle if it was built by Apple and super luxurious? Or do you think Tesla's approach of making a much cheaper, compact car that also could drive you is going to be the way to go? And where does Apple fit in all this? Do you think there's maybe still some partnership that could be had there? Drop a comment down below and let me know. As always, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for watching. I'm Robert Rosenfeld, and I'll see you all